Okay, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. October 11th, 2021, Village of Villa Park Board of Trustees meeting. Clerk Kornecki, please call the roll.
Trustee Salella?
Here.
Trustee Corkery?
Here.
Trustee Kozar?
Here.
Trustee Kumar?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Patrick?
Here.
President Kazone.
Here. Please stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start with our public comments on agenda items. Clerk Kornecki, do we have anyone signed up?
I have no one second.
Okay, anyone in the audience like to say anything? Okay, we will move on to public comments, or I'm sorry, amendments to the agenda. We have any amendments here? Okay, seeing none. Move on to item 5A. It's a proclamation declaring October 24th, 2021 World Polio Day. Proclamation. Whereas the Rotary Club of Villa Park is a member of Rotary International, the world's first and still one of its largest nonprofit service organizations, founded in Chicago, Illinois in 1905. And whereas the Rotary motto, Service Above Self, inspires members to provide humanitarian service, encourage high ethical standards, and promote goodwill and peace in the world. And whereas Rotary in 1985 launched Polio Plus and spearheaded the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to immunize all the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped by over 99.9% since 1988, and the world now stands on the threshold of eradicating this dreaded disease and thereby eliminating the threat of polio-caused paralysis to every child in the world. And whereas members of the Rotary Club of Villa Park continue to contribute their time and their resources to support Polio Plus and the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And whereas their efforts are providing much needed operational support, medical personnel, laboratory equipment, and educational materials for health workers and parents. Therefore, I, Nick Kazone, Village President of the Village of Villa Park, do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2021 as World Polio Day in the Village of Villa Park, and do hereby encourage all residents to join the Rotarians of our local club in the fight for a polio-free world. Thank you. Nobody's here from
Me.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 5B, Sikich LLC presentation of the Village Comprehensive Annual Financial Report.
Good evening. My name is Nick Bava, and I am the Senior Audit Manager with Sikich assigned to the Village's audit. So on behalf of myself and Sikich, I would like to thank the Village President and the Board of Trustees for having me here tonight to present the results of the Village's audit as of and for their fiscal year ended December 31st, 2020. Ultimately, as part of the audit process, we issue 7 separate reports. The report I'll briefly cover tonight is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the largest of the documents. And the other 6 deliverables, I'd be happy to answer any questions on, but just to go through those real quickly, are the Auditor's communication to the Village Board of Trustees, the management letter required by Illinois compiled statutes, the single audit report for federal expenditures in excess of $750,000, the tax increment financing examination on the 5 active TIF districts for the village, the allocation report on the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund plan for the village and the library, and then lastly, we assist in the filing of the electronic annual financial report that's submitted through the Comptroller's website. Again, I'll cover and highlight a few items out of the comprehensive annual financial report, but again, would be happy to answer any questions afterwards. So for those following along, I'd like to start in the introductory section. It's page Roman numeral number 3. Page Roman numeral number 3 is the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I wanted to point this out to the board and commend the village for voluntarily preparing a comprehensive annual financial report. This report goes well above and beyond the minimum statutory requirements for financial reporting for a fiscal year, both with Illinois compiled statutes and generally accepted accounting principles. This report is prepared in the spirit of full disclosure, accountability, and transparency to the village's residents, taxpayers, and anyone that's interested in the village's fund balance or financial position for any given fiscal year. This certificate marks the 33rd receipt of an award for a financial report, and I wanted to commend and congratulate the village for receiving this. We also anticipate for this report that is going to be submitted tonight that the village will receive their 34th certificate once that has undergone its review. Moving on to the financial section, pages 1, 2, and 3 are the independent auditor's report. These 3 pages are the most important pages in the report in that they document us as the auditor's opinion on the financial statements and document that these financial statements are free of material misstatement. The first paragraph, management's responsibility for the financial statements on page number 1, documents that it is ultimately management's responsibility for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The second paragraph, the auditor's responsibility paragraph, documents that us as the village auditors, it's our responsibility to opine on these financial statements and test these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. So if we move to page number 2, about halfway down page number 2 documents the opinion paragraph. And I'm pleased to report that based on our testing and the procedures that we underwent, we believe that the financial statements tonight in all material respects present fairly the village's governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information as of December 31st, 2020. This opinion is what we refer to as an unmodified opinion. It's a clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance that we can provide a unit of local government here in Illinois that undergoes an annual audit. So congratulations to the village and management on achieving this opinion. Page number 3, I would like to point out the bottom paragraph titled Other Reporting Required by Government Auditing Standards. I noted previously that the village had a single audit this year and we issued a single audit report. This paragraph makes that connection as far as what that report relates to. It is a separate report with separate opinions, and it is required anytime the village expends greater than $750,000 in federal grant money. In the case of fiscal year 2020, the major program was the COVID-19 relief funding that came and was passed through Dupage County. Ultimately, that came from the U.S. Department of Treasury, which is why the federal strings were attached. That $1.1 million was spent in 2020, and that is why it was required to have the compliance testing completed. I'm pleased to report that that testing did not issue any instances of non-compliance or any questioned costs, and had a clean opinion similar to the opinion I just mentioned. The last section I just want to highlight tonight is the following page. It's titled The Management's Discussion and Analysis. It starts on page MD&A number 1 and it goes to page MD&A number 12. If there is any section that the board were to read as part of this report, I would highly recommend that these 12 pages are read. It is a very well put together management's discussion and analysis, and what it does is it provides context and underlying reason as to what things have changed from the previous fiscal year to the fiscal year we're talking about tonight. A lot of the statements and schedules, as we know, provide numbers and changes in fund balance and net position, but these 12 pages do a great job of shedding light on increases, decreases, why things changed from the previous fiscal year. It was done by village management and the finance department, and it was reviewed by us as the auditors to ensure the information is consistent with the financial statements here tonight and also consistent with what's required by generally accepted accounting principles. So that concludes the presentation on the audit report. Again, thank you to the board and thank you to management and finance for your help throughout the process this year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Thank you for your presentation, and I'd like to appreciate it and thank staff. I think everybody's done a good job last few years here, and they continue to do it, and it shows that we're in good shape and doing things correctly. So that's a good thing. Thank you to staff and the village manager.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move along to item 6A. Take from the table an ordinance amending Appendix C zoning ordinance of the Village Municipal Code of the Village of Avila Park, Dupage County, Illinois. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. During the September 13, 2021 Village Board meeting, a majority of the Village Board of Trustees voted to table an ordinance to approve proposed zoning text amendments. These text amendments are intended to clarify code requirements, better address best practices and/or current trends, including adding regulations concerning permanent outdoor storage containers. To return this item for board consideration, a majority of the Village Board of Trustees must vote in favor of removing it from the table. Staff recommends removing it from the table for consideration. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for this? Trustee Patrick?
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second that.
Trustee Murphy. Okay, so this is just basically taking this off the table and bringing it up for discussion later. Any questions or comments? Trustee Patrick?
Thank you. Hopefully with the help of the village attorney, I would just like an explanation, or at least how people at home and maybe some board members here understand the process of things coming off the table, on the table, and when things could be talked about. Thank
Be
you.
glad to. So this was, as Manager Keener said, on the before the board for discussion September 13th. The discussion was tabled, but not tabled to a date certain. So unless it's tabled to a date certain, on which date, if it were tabled to a date certain, it would have to be on that agenda. So when you have something tabled, an item tabled, with absolutely no direction as to when it would come back before this board, you first have to vote to remove it and put it on the table, which is what we just did. I hope that was clear.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Trustee Kozar?
So what we're untabling is exactly what we would be voting on later in this agenda?
That was what was before the board. That was what was tabled, so that is, yes, what would have to come back to this board.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Trustee Corkery?
So it's on the agenda twice, but we're untabling it so we can talk about it later? Okay.
Yeah,
Got
'cause
it.
it comes under the ordinances, once, you know, once,
Got it.
yeah. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Clerk Konecki?
Okay, Trustee Corkery,
Yes.
Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
Trustee Silella,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Patrick,
Yes.
Trustee Kozar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, we will move on to item 7, consent agenda. 7A, bill listings for the weeks of September 27th, 2021 and October 4th, 2021 in the amount of $1,319,864.01. Item 7B, the minutes from the board meeting held on September 27th, 2021. We have a motion. Trustee Patrick.
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a second. Trustee Kumar?
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Konecki, please.
Okay, Trustee Silella,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Corkery,
Yes.
Trustee Kozar,
Yes.
Trustee Patrick,
Yes.
Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
President Kazone.
Yes. Okay, move on to item 8, ordinances. 8A, an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, Dupage County, Illinois, prohibiting the use of groundwater as a potable water supply by the installation or use of potable water supply wells or by any other method. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. The village received a request from EPS Environmental Services, Inc. of Chicago, Illinois, to consider approving a groundwater ordinance. EPS has been working to fulfill the obligations of the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency Site Remediation Program to obtain a no further remediation letter for soil and groundwater contamination related to the property located at 621 East Wildwood Avenue, currently owned by 621 Wildwood LLC. This ordinance prohibits the use of groundwater as a supply of potable water through the installation and/or use of private potable water supply wells. Staff recommends approval of this ordinance. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager. Okay, do we have a motion for this? Trustee Patrick?
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Trustee Solella? Second? Okay. Any questions, comments, discussion? Trustee Corcoran?
So this wouldn't just affect the property on East Wildwood, it would be the whole village?
No, this is strictly for the property and then the property on the east and west sides of it. Just
Sure.
those three properties. Trustee Kumar?
So this is, requested by EPS Services, who was hired by that property
By the property owner, correct?
owner. Okay.
Okay. Other questions? Trustee Corcoran?
I'm just curious, why do they want us to do this? What's the benefit there? Just for the
There is some contamination on the property, and it may migrate onto the adjacent properties, but it's only affecting groundwater. So the ordinance basically says you cannot use the groundwater as a potable water supply,
Sure.
which you can't do it anyway in Dupage County. They won't allow you
I was
to
just
drill
gonna
any
say,
wells
yeah.
anymore, so. But it's something that the Illinois EPA requires.
And do we know if this is gonna affect any of the neighbors, if they're doing that now?
It should not affect the neighbors.
But it actually, may I?
Go ahead.
Most towns adopt it for their entire boundaries, so that you don't just dig a well and use it as drinking water, because we don't know. But in Villa Park, we've been doing it piece by piece. But as President Kazone says, the county would prohibit us from using potable water, digging for potable water.
Sure. No further questions.
Okay. Trustee Kumar?
Why then are we just doing it piece by piece, and why don't we just do it village-wide?
Well, we've got this on the agenda now. If you'd like us to bring one village-wise, we can.
Okay.
All right.
We definitely bring that up.
Consider in the future, is what you're saying.
Yes, I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Clerk Kornacki, please.
Okay, trustee Kozar,
Actually, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this your company?
Yes, it is.
Should you be recusing yourself on this vote?
He
Yes, I
shall.
will.
He's been,
Yeah.
yes, he's been advised to so do it. His company's not working for the municipality, it's working for the private property owner.
Okay. I just feel that should have been something that should have been shared. I just was looking on the website.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Clerk Kornacki.
okay? All right, trustee Kozar.
Yes.
Okay, trustee Murphy? Yes. Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Salella?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
And President Kazone.
I recuse myself because of a conflict.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item 8B, an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending certain provisions of Appendix C, Basic Zoning Ordinance of the Villa Park Municipal Code. Manager Keenum.
Thank you, Your Honor. During their April 8, 2021 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved text amendments concerning the use of shipping containers for a temporary and permanent basis for non-residential property. These text amendments apply to Article 6, Section 6.11.2, creates Section 6.12, and amends Article 14, Section 14.2.22 of the Zoning Ordinance, Appendix C of the Village Code. Staff recommends approval of these text amendments. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Murphy, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Corkery. Okay, any questions or comments?
I have one.
Yes.
I would just like to confirm that what we're voting on here are the redlined items that have previously been under discussion.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Kozar.
So what was untabled, the village attorney had said is exactly what is before us now. But the ordinance that we're looking at right now reads differently than the ordinance that was untabled. Can you explain that?
To the best of my knowledge, what is before you tonight, my understanding is exactly what was tabled on September 13th. If that's incorrect, I'm unaware of it.
Okay, it is incorrect. So if we look at the ordinance from 9/13,
which I don't have.
You can just see on the second page. And if you recall, 913 is what I had held up on, or the ordinance on 913 is what I had held up. And I had asked multiple times, this is what we're tabling. And I was told that if any changes were suggested, to submit that to the village at large, or should say to the president and the village manager by October 5th, which was done. Now I'm looking at the ordinance that's before the village now. If you look on section, or page 2 of the 913 ordinance, there's 2 sections. If you look on the one proposed today, there's 3 sections. We've eliminated 6.11.2. The language on the September 13 ordinance read, in part, section 611.2 and 14.22 in their entirety, and replacing said sections with the following. Now we have 3 sections that we're looking at, and it reads, by adding section 6.12A and section 6.12B and replacing 14.2.22 in their entirety with the following. You're also adding a 6.11.2H. My understanding of when you table something is it gets tabled, and the exact thing that was tabled gets then brought before the same board.
Agreed.
So it doesn't make sense to me why there would be any difference, any change.
And then,
I can't explain it. I thought I had it in front of me, but I don't know. Consuelo, can you explain that?
So the ordinance draft that's before you tonight for consideration is specific to the outdoor storage containers.
So you just shortened what was before us to eliminate it, to just talk about a portion of
Yeah.
what we have before us?
So the notice that was posted was included a general overwrite of the chapter of the zoning ordinance, and it did call out outdoor storage shipping containers in there. So the ordinance before you tonight is regarding the outdoor shipping containers as it relates to permanent and temporary.
Was that the direction of the board, just to focus? Yes. Thank you, Trustee Deepa. That was the direction to narrow. As you will recall, the complaint was that the ordinance was too broad, covered too many topics. And so I believe it was to bring one topic before you, and so consequently, what is before you is strictly the container portion of that ordinance.
I'm talking about what was before us when we tabled it versus what is brought before us today. What you're referring to is when the omnibus, I call it the omnibus ordinance bill, was brought before this board, it was voted down. Just ultimately it was voted down.
It wasn't voted down, because then we could never bring any portion of it back. So that was where the tabling started.
Well, we all voted and we said no, and then there was conversation for discussion thereafter to say we would like this broken down into smaller pieces.
So
brought
that it
back up.
wasn't voted down, because you cannot bring the same,
But that's not what I'm talking about here. So we can go back and we can look at exactly how that went down after the meeting. We can just pull it up because it's all recorded and it's on YouTube. But then we got this smaller package text amendment brought back to us. I don't have a problem with the smaller package being brought back to us, because this is what we had talked about, that this is how it should be. It should be broken down into smaller components so we could have good discussion on it. But that is not what is, that was then tabled, and there was conversation or dialogue where the village manager said, It doesn't have to go back down to P and Z. We can discuss it here and talk about it. And then at the 2 meetings ago, it was discussed because there were some changes that I had started to propose, for example, 6.11.2E as an example, and it was suggested to us, let us table it, submit your suggestions. We will put those suggestions out there so that there can be some public viewing of it, some transparency of it. Then we will bring it back and we will take votes on that. So
Okay.
what you untabled here 5 minutes ago is not the same ordinance that is untabled.
All right.
No.
We can accept that. If the village board is prepared to discuss what has just been presented to it, i.e. the shorter ordinance, we can proceed. What we brought from the table, we can bring forward on the next meeting to have it exactly the same. We can go forward because this ordinance, the shorter version as you put it, was
Which one are you holding up?
whichever one is just the container.
The tabled version or not the tabled version?
The
AP
new version.
The
You
AP
are-
version.
Right, you are
which is
still
new.
legally allowed to discuss the new version because it was properly noticed as a part of this agenda. So then the issue becomes, what happens to the one that we took off the table? We can have that brought back to this board at any time, and we can move to have that go to a table to a date certain. You are not prohibited, is what I'm saying, from discussing what is on the agenda for discussion tonight, i.e. that ordinance that just pertains to the container, if you so choose.
But are we then also allowed to talk about section 6.11 temporary uses?
I believe that,
6.11.2,
I think, wasn't that included in the one that is the shorter version?
it was included in what we tabled. It is not included in 8B. That's my quandary here.
No, what is not included in this?
Yeah, what I have
Can I
before.
just show you?
Yeah, you see what talks about temporary storage, what I have in front of me.
So this is what was tabled, labeled 913.
Yeah, okay, I don't care.
What is this?
Okay.
No, I want to, what
And
I
this is
got
what,
is all about temporary.
right, this is what was tabled. See, it says permitted uses. That's not on here. This is what was tabled.
This outdoor container, 10 floor.
It's also, we'll continue down.
Okay,
Is there a part that's missing?
To here,
okay, I see what you're saying.
right.
So there are, yes, you've already shown us that there are additional sections in this that are not in this. That doesn't mean we don't bring this back for further discussion.
I'm suggesting, why can't we have further discussion today? Because this is what was tabled, the longer
We
one.
can have, you're right, we can have discussion on both of them.
Okay, great.
We may be here till midnight, but we can do it.
Okay.
I've got it. I've got it. Yes,
Kathy,
I've got
do we have it, the rest of the board members?
it. It was in my packet, I assume, you can tell by the title. In your packet, there is an ordinance that says, an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, Dupage County, Illinois, amending certain provisions of Appendix C, Basic Zoning Ordinance of the Villa Park Municipal Code. The shorter version, the one that is also on the agenda tonight, is one with a 3-line title. Ordinance amending certain provisions of Appendix C, Basic Zoning Ordinance of Villa Park Municipal Code. And yes,
So this is the one that will be,
so
because this is the one that
if
was
you
originally
want to
tabled.
talk about temporary containers, we would use, I think we have to, for purposes of order, decide which one we'd like to discuss first. Would you like to go to the one to discuss temporary containers, or would you like to discuss containers? One that begins with permitted uses, if you have pointed out.
I would like to discuss 6.11.2
Okay,
and then work our way through. So I'd like to talk about the one that was actually tabled.
okay.
And
Do you all have that in front of you? Okay.
so I'm making a motion that we strike 6.11.2E. These are the same, I'm just going to go through the previous list that was submitted on 10.5.
Well,
But I can articulate each one if that would be
um,
the more appropriate way. Or we could take a vote on each one.
I leave that to the.
Well, yeah, and, because when, at the last meeting, I had suggested these comments come, we discuss them tonight, but we vote on, tonight, we only vote on the changes that were originally made by P and Z. That was my suggestion at the end of the meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago. These, your comments, with the things that you like to change, I felt we should discuss them here and send them to P and Z because there's a lot of issues. These are not just minor changes to the ordinance. These are major changes. We have no idea what other ramifications may be, how many other properties may be affected by these. And that's the reason that P and Z is there, is to get comments and from the public too, exactly how this is going to affect everybody. So the idea was we vote on the changes that P and Z had made, their red line. We discuss these tonight, but then these go back to P and Z for discussion, and then back to us for votes on it. Trustee Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a question then, is today that there was an email sent out to the Planning and Zoning Commission with the proposed changes. What is the process then for that to happen?
The,
Go ahead.
excuse me, the process would be, the fact that they have copies of them is irrelevant. They have to be given directions to proceed. Now, we can do it two ways. We can do it as was suggested, go one by one here with the suggested changes. But if we do it that way, I have to admit, I have to realize that what President Kazone is saying, we would never know what other ramifications. These may be the greatest changes forever, but we don't know until it affects other properties. So one of the suggestions would be we adopt what we've got and direct these new suggestions to P and Z. Specifically, that doesn't mean if they come back, when they come back with recommendations that you would have to agree with them. It's just a body of recommendations, but at least they would have they'd be vetted, and we would know what other properties these may benefit or what properties these may not benefit.
So just to clarify, the purpose of that email being sent to Planning and Zoning was so that way they can prepare to vet.
They asked for a copy. They were told that they had heard there were suggested changes to their recommendations, and there was nothing confidential about it. I hope that I mean, I think it would be prudent to have those changes reviewed just to determine the ramifications of other properties. I mean, there's no doubt that these suggested changes will all benefit Trustee Kozar's property, hands down.
I totally object to that.
Oh, you.
I mean, like, for you even to say that, to even infer that.
Well,
That's
I've reviewed
absolutely
them.
not true, because we're
I
talking.
reviewed them against it.
You just made a statement that these are gonna affect me. That's like saying, if we do something in the village that affects property owners and raises property values, it's gonna affect somebody who owns a house. Moreover, the changes that I submitted have to do with shipping containers. I have a variance on shipping containers.
I understand that, but also there are numerous other properties that have shipping containers, and you have a shipping container. You have outdoor entertainment. There is no one else in this village that has outdoor entertainment. We can go through these one by one.
This is off track, and it's
This is off track.
improper for you even to suggest that I'm making changes just to
hang on,
benefit my
hang on.
property.
Trustee Patrick Haverly had the floor.
All I really wanted to clarify was, from the beginning of this, what the proper process is for making changes. We've been volleying this back and forth for quite some time now, and I think there's still a lot of confusion, not just by the board, but also by the public. And we're looking for clarification as to what is the right process here. And you did task the board with giving us specific direction of getting back to you by October 5th with those changes. And a majority of the board members did talk about these and discussed one-on-one what they thought was viable. So we're here talking about what we can and cannot talk about and what's going to be changed, what's not going to be changed. And I'm sitting here looking at an item on the agenda that was tabled, but it's not the same item. So we have some clear communication issues right here, or even transparency about what's really going on. So we have gotten to a completely sidetracked with some of the discussion that's been happening right here. So I want to make a motion to table this item, 8B, until our next stated meeting on October 25th, that gives the trustees and also the staff the amount of time to clarify this, what the process is.
Okay. Is there a second?
Oh, no, I was gonna say, I'd like to clarify it tonight if we can. We've been talking about this a long time.
Oh, we have a motion.
Concrete
We have a
steps
motion,
on
though, but is there a second on the motion?
No.
Trustee Kumar? Okay, well, hang on. Is there a second anywhere? Okay, seeing none, okay. Trustee Kumar?
I have to agree that the process has not been clear since the beginning. It is very important, and I really strongly understand that there may be certain changes that seem to be particular to a person or not, but we cannot think about things this way. This is about a village, and the changes that happen, I understand, are for the whole village, but we cannot single out anyone in any way within this board. I was not comfortable with that singling out. We are making changes for the board as a whole. There have been some positive changes suggested here that I can see, and some that I may not agree with personally, and other board members may not. The question is, when can we discuss it? We would like to finish discussion today, and if it's sent to P&Z, it should go to P&Z at the absolute next meeting and get through. We are slowing down every change, and this is not about this particular issue at all. It's about every issue that is brought forth before the board. The process needs to be clear enough so that it is clear to all us board members, plus the public who is depending on us to make concise and particular decisions. And if we do not have a clear process, the trust is lost within all the 6 board members that are sitting here, as well as our president. So that process, I would like to vet out today and now.
Trustee Corcoran?
If I may interject just briefly, I know one thing all of us new members ran on, and I think a high priority for everyone here, is ordinance reform. And I think the process confusion has been a big hitch in that, and that we need to really figure out some kind of way that we can look at everything, get it before the public and get it before P&Z, and then get it back to us in a clear, easy way going forward, so that we all know if we have an issue with an ordinance, if someone comes with us with something, who we as the board can email to get that process going, to get things in front of P&Z, and to get them looked at as soon as possible.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes, just clarification on my position. I am ready tonight to vote yes to move forward with any of the red line changes as we had previously discussed. I, however, will not vote yes on any of these recommended strike ordinance changes until they get through planning and zoning and our businesses and residents are made aware of what these specific recommended changes are, which to the best of my knowledge has not happened to date. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with all of the trustees that just spoke about this matter. Can we have someone right now explain that process from start to finish?
Would you want to do it in a legal sense? Or?
Well, my confusion was the fact that what was taken off, that was taken off the table was not exactly the same form that was on as 8B. That was my misunderstanding, because it was my direction that the exact table be what was on the agenda for discussion. Having said that, though, both items are on the table. Are on the agenda, and therefore able to be discussed. The first ordinance, there were questions with regard to what was taken off the table on the section of temporary containers. So if there are issues on that section of the ordinance taken off the table, and there are suggested changes for that portion, we can discuss it tonight, or we can table it with a request that it goes to P&Z. With regard to the ordinance that is only directed on containers, we can look at the suggested changes with regard solely to the containers, and if we can't, we can either direct that it goes to P&Z, or we can amend the ordinance that is before us if the majority of the board agree on any of those changes. The fact of the matter is, this chapter has been reviewed by P&Z. With regard to the changes, suggested changes, there are just a few of them. I can tell you which ones, because I thought I went back and looked. Of the suggested changes in the memo we received, I believe 1, 3, 5, and 7 were the only ones that had not been discussed by P&Z. Having said that, some of the changes and some of the striking, what we don't know, even though they have been discussed by P&Z, what ramifications they would have on other properties within the village. So, legally, you are entitled to review both ordinances before you, properly notified on the agenda, and make any amendments you wish. You are also, you have the power to direct portions of this, all of it, one of it, go back to the P&Z for further discussion. What we've got before us right now is a broad range of opportunities, given the fact there's 2 ordinances on the agenda properly noticed, and there is a list of suggestions.
But the original motion was for the ordinance that wasn't tabled. It was a short version.
But when you take it off the table, though, we
Right.
can still deal with
Yeah.
that one too. So that's where the confusion was, not realizing there was that separate section, because I had reviewed it so many times in the past when it was up. I did not go through all those papers today. However, but it does give us legal credibility to discuss both, to take what portions of it we want amend, or take what portions we want reviewed by the P&Z to be sent back to the P&Z. The process is confused, and I apologize for that, but it has been confused. But in terms of the legality, we're not in a bad place.
So we could vote on both ordinances, pass them, and then discuss the changes also, correct?
That's one procedure, yes.
Okay. Which is kind of what I had been talking about anyways. Get the ordinances passed and then discuss these items as a separate issue, because these are major changes to the ordinances. Trustee Corcoran.
So we're here in a yes or no capacity. We're not changing anything to do with this at all. We don't have input on that.
Oh, yeah, you
Yes.
can, sure you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to P&Z.
Well, no. We can do whatever. We could vote on all of this tonight.
But if you vote on the change, it doesn't go back to the P&Z because the final decision has been made.
Right.
Sure.
So that, all I'm suggesting is, and it's a suggestion, you know, the board can vote however they want.
So,
The suggestion is, vote on the ordinances, yes or no, and then discuss the changes, the 12 changes, and then we can either vote on those or send it back to P and Z. It's up to the board. But that's,
then what are we
that's my
voting on
suggestion, but
first
the
time?
board
I don't
can,
understand.
The red line items.
The red line
we
items,
already
correct.
saw.
Okay.
correct. Okay, Trustee Kumar,
So even if we vote no on all the red line items, we will still have our discussion and we can still send it back to P and Z.
no, what, oh, go ahead.
Once you vote down an ordinance, you can't bring it back through the same session, which means we would have to wait. We have sessions in the village of every 2 years, so that once an ordinance is turned down, you have to wait a period of time, i.e. till it's a new board, every 2 years to bring it back. That's why we continually, when there are subjects, is use the tabling method.
I'm sorry, but if that's the case, I don't see how discussing it after we vote on it does us any good then.
No, because we're voting on the red line.
Right.
Okay, yes or no on that? If we vote yes on the red line items, then we discuss these changes,
Okay.
which would be additional
We
changes
would
to the
be new
ordinance.
amendments to the same chapter.
Okay.
And
And then we approve the whole thing.
No, you've
Or
already
don't.
approved it. You've already approved the ordinance, the red line. Okay? These are, there's gonna
So
be,
that's
this is
law once we
basically,
vote on
would be
it.
3 votes. The tabled ordinance, the revised ordinance, correct?
Yes.
And then the changes here. The ordinance that was tabled,
You're not voting on the changes.
right, we're voting on the red line changes
To
that
put
were
those in the
tabled.
law, right?
Right.
Yes. Okay.
And then the one that was here, right, the shorter one,
It's duplication,
it's
but.
basic, yeah, okay,
So it's the same thing. So we're voting on it twice. the
right.
same-
And then we would discuss,
We wouldn't
12
discuss, we'd
changes.
send that, those 12 back to the P and Z to further amend what you adopt tonight. Did you follow that?
Sure. So it becomes a law, and then we're developing that
Further
and we're
amendments
going
to
amend
the
it
law.
next time.
right. Trustee Kumar,
so, Kathy, just clarify. So if it becomes a law and it goes back to P and Z.
It doesn't go back to P and Z. Only the suggested changes go back
Okay,
to P and Z.
if it becomes a law and the suggested changes go back to P and Z, then it is not like, when we vote no, it becomes dead according to you for 2 years. We cannot touch it. But if if some of us vote yes and agree to suggested changes, it is possible to send it back to P and Z and it'll come back to us and then we vote on it.
All right, so we can table the ordinances and send them back to P and Z with the suggested changes. We can adopt the ordinances and send just the changes back to P and Z to amend what has become law by, okay.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay, understood by me.
Trustee Patrick.
So just to clarify, the work that we did for the October 5th deadline for getting you the email with those changes,
Right,
we can discuss those today
correct.
and send it back to P and Z after the vote. Okay,
Yeah,
They wouldn't be a part of the vote.
correct.
Yeah,
We
we would
vote
vote.
what was vetted before the P and Z, but then we would direct the P and Z.
The proposed
to-
changes that we suggested that we work together with then would be able to be sent to P and Z, and they already have been.
Well, no, we
Through an
would
email.
send it with a
Formal, yeah,
formal
formal
request
document.
that they discuss it.
And we
Having a
might,
copy
we
of
may
it-
make changes to the changes today that we discussed and then send the proper copy to P and Z, correct?
with a direct-
Okay.
Trustee Kozar.
I suggest we just start at 6.11.2 and work our way down. And in the time that we've spent going back and forth all this time, we could have been done with this. And we just start at A and we work our way down. Start at A, go to B, go to C. Take a vote. Do we want it? Do we not want it?
No.
The
it's
language
not
says
made
you're deleting 6.11.2 in its entirety and replacing it with.
No.
Therefore, it leaves and we just work through it.
But the idea, and again, if the board wants to vote that way, that's fine. The suggestion is, though, because these are such sweeping changes, we don't know what the ramifications are for other properties, or how many properties would be affected. So that's the reason for sending it back to P and Z. is to, we can discuss these and what the board would like to see now. And we can discuss them, and we can vote on them if the board wants to vote.
No.
But again, I think some of the trustees agree with that we can discuss these, but then send them back there for their comment, get public comment, and then come back to us. And we could still make changes. The board can still change it however they want, once it comes back to us. Trustee Corcoran.
When's the next P and Z meeting?
It would be,
We'd have to notice it, but there's a 15-day prior
Yeah, it would be-
notice in the paper.
November 11th, because the meeting this week's been canceled. So
It'd be
it'll be November 11th,
And then we would discuss these ordinance changes at the very next board meeting after that and
correct.
put this to bed.
Right.
That's the
If they
process.
can get the notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes, can you confirm, there's been a lot of discussion tonight, so I apologize. Can you confirm, it's my understanding that staff is recommending passing the ordinances?
Passing
And-
the red line ordinances.
Right,
Correct.
correct. So,
Staff
I mean,
is suggesting that.
if we were to take that direction, we would be passing, the recommendation is to pass the redlined ordinances, and then my preferred direction would be send the 12 proposed changes to planning and zoning and bring them back at the next meeting in November. Not the next meeting, the meeting
Yeah, the
after
next-
planning and zoning.
The next planning and zoning.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion for that direction, or?
No, make a motion to approve.
Well, the motion is already on the floor to approve the red line amendments.
Okay.
And actually, should we make a recommendation to amend to
Separate.
vote for, they got to be voted separate?
There's a lot of redundancy. The only thing that's different is the permitted uses under temporary. So I would suggest you pass both, even though there's portions that are redundant.
Can we pass them on one vote, or should we pass them separate?
I would like to see them passed separately, just for
Okay.
the record and clarification.
Okay.
And then do we need to do something formal to make the recommendation that these alternative 12 changes get sent back to planning and zoning?
Yes, you would make a motion that all of these changes be sent to planning and zoning for hearing.
That would be my preferred direction.
Trustee Corcoran.
Just for future reference, the next time, someone comes to me about an ordinance or I want to have the board discuss an ordinance change, who do I email to make that happen?
Is it best to go to P and Z first?
There are several procedures. We have not, in this village, and I've been here 10 years, we have had issues that have gone directly to P and Z. In other words, you would mention it to the village president, and the village president would then send it on to the correct department head. You could also, not only the village president, the way we've been doing it all these years, is you would go with your suggestion to the village manager, and the village manager would send it to the direct department, because it's not necessarily P and Z, it could be an issue that you want amendment as to some accounting issue or some expenditure issue.
Sure.
So that's the way it has traditionally gone. There is no reason, however, and many towns do, and I've been there, where all issues that go to the Planning and Zoning Commission first come to the village board. That has been found by some villages, such as us, to be a little constraining, to slowing the process, because you first has to bring it before a village board meeting. So our procedure has been, if you have a suggestion for something, you can go to the manager or the village president, and then they would direct the direct department to do it. That is traditionally how it's been. And that's how it has been in terms of the ordinances that were before you. There were discussions by various committee groups, citizens, manager, etc. That's how it got to be an omnibus ordinance.
Okay. Trustee Kumar.
I would suggest a written clarified procedure sent to all the board members on the clear-cut way to do this from the village manager and the village board, and signed by our president, because I think we need to have that procedure in writing for the rest of the board members, so that if someone asks us, we are following proper procedure and it is the right way to do it. Now, I think ideally it would be best if it went before the village manager. This is my personal opinion, obviously. The suggestions were sent to the whole board, the village manager and the president, the whole group at the same time, and no replies, obviously. as that is against our open acts laws. But I do think it should go across the whole board at least whatever changes are being proposed. So everybody has knowledge of it, not necessarily make suggestions upon it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so there's a motion right now for the original, or for the tabled
The ordinance taken
ordinance,
off the
the
table.
redlined ordinance that was tabled. Okay.
Do we
Can
have
I-
a second?
8B.
Yes,
Ready for the vote?
yes.
Okay. Trustee Silella,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
No.
President Kazal.
Yes, okay. So
Now-
then we need an ordinance, or a motion for the ordinance that was
Taken
on
off the
tonight's
table.
agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that was for the table one. Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion for that. Trustee Murphy.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Trustee Kumar. Okay,
So explain to me what this one is?
okay, the vote, the first vote was on the original ordinance that was tabled.
Taken off.
Taken, it was taken off, the red line ordinance that was taken off, and then we brought it back tonight. This vote now would be for the one that was on tonight's agenda, which is the shortened one. Which is basically the same thing without the one section in it. But since it was on, the agenda, we can put that in. And so it's, like the attorney said, it's just redundant, but it's on the table.
So we voted on what we tabled, and now we're
Correct.
voting on what staff brought forth that we didn't discuss. So we're doing this redundant vote with no discussion
Oh,
about
we can,
the,
no, we can discuss. We're just asking for a motion right now.
so
It's,
we can discuss outdoor storage containers, 6.2, 6.12.
No, there's going to be a motion to send those back to planning and zoning.
Not yet. This is the motion.
So I'd like to talk about 6.12.
There's been a motion in the
A2.
section.
Yeah,
Okay.
the first and
yeah, so that's
second.
the discussion, yeah. Okay,
All right, A2. There may be no more than one temporary outdoor storage container per property. I think that should be stricken. Walmart currently has more than one. Are we gonna, is this board willing to put into law to say that Walmart is in violation as of 9 o'clock this evening?
They're not in violation.
Go
Thank
ahead,
you, Mayor.
Mayor.
Yep, Walmart's right now going through over $1 million renovation, so it's our understanding they will have shipping containers until they're complete. Thank you, Your Honor.
I don't have a problem with, I don't know if I'm recognized or not. I'll
yeah, go
start
ahead,
over.
go ahead.
I don't have a problem with Walmart or anybody, if they have the need for it, to have more than one temporary outdoor storage container. They need a permit for it, so they just have to show a need. But like the manager said, they're going through a renovation, they're doing something, they obviously have a need for more than one of them. Let's not limit them. So just strike it. You can have
But-
any number that you need, if you need that.
But that would be a special use, or a variance on an ordinance. So they could always come to the P and Z and ask for a variance on that.
But that's so cumbersome, it's temporary. They're doing a rehab or something in the manager's scenario where Walmart is doing some sort of renovation. They're not gonna come in and get a variance so they can have multiple temporary outdoor storage containers. These are temporary. By nature, it's quick in, quick out. Talk about putting a burden on a business.
No limit.
Yeah, I think if you put no limit on it, I mean, do you want a business having 15 storage containers next to you
On a temporary basis,
on a temporary basis?
if they've got a need for it, such as Walmart right now. Like, Are we really gonna think that a random business is just gonna have 15 temporary storage containers on their property on a temporary basis just for the fun of it? There's gotta be a reason for
I mean,
it.
there's, yeah,
And you have
but
to have a
it's-
permit for it. So part of that permitting is to explain, why do I need 15 shipping containers on my property for a temporary point?
But if there's no limit, then there's no need for them to explain it. Right? You know, if somebody wants 10 shipping containers, as long as they meet the rest of the requirements for, temporary storage.
But you need a permit just to have one, right?
Trustee Corcoran.
You do need a permit just to have one, so you need a permit to have any number, right? You have to specify the number. The blanket one, it could be a little bit restrictive. I mean, the opposition to shipping containers is aesthetic, right? It's because they don't look good.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, I would say a visual
They're
thing.
site
yeah,
obstructions,
yeah.
they're aesthetically unpleasing. Site obstruction is the biggest concern I have. We'd have to ask our community development director.
The sight lines for drivers?
For drivers, for neighbors, for looking on properties. For example, you could have a commercial property that wants 15 storage containers on a temporary basis because they're going to, as Walmart is going to revamp their store, and they have to have a permit, but it doesn't fit because it's very difficult for the neighboring businesses or neighboring signs, or there's a multitude of problems by just making it not restrictive by number in any way. But I would defer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may just clarify that for active building permits that have been issued, have been approved, reviewed, issued, the temporary outdoor storage containers are permitted because there's an active building permit, such as the case for like Walmart's that's going through a major rehab of the interior space. That's very common for construction projects, right? While they're going through the changes in interior remodeling, the addition, whatever the case might be, for them to have outdoor storage containers as part of that construction project.
And is the number limited then during an outdoor construction project still to one?
No, it is not.
Okay, so does not apply to anyone doing a renovation then, or something like that, as long as they've got a permit for it?
Yeah, they would need a permit for the interior remodel, the actual project, the primary project of that site.
If I mean, my only thing about the sight lines is that's covered in another part of the bill as well. It says you can't obstruct traffic sight lines, so I don't see how the number of it plays into that part of it.
Well, I think we're talking about two separate things. What the ordinance changes are specific to permanent use of these storage containers on the property. That's not part of a building permit, rehab project, addition, new construction, whatever the case might be.
Trustee Kumar.
I have a question about that. The temporary storage, you said it's allowed by those who have, now is there a one of our ordinances that says that if you have a construction project, you are allowed to have temporary storage containers? Because that should be in that ordinance if it's allowed. The problem I think that all of us are having is some of these laws may apply to someone and not apply equally to another person. It's the equality issue that is coming up with many of us, which we want to make this more universal. Any of our ordinances at this point need to be more universal. So if it's allowed for Walmart or whichever thing, is that in an ordinance that you know of, that you are allowed to have temporary storage containers if you are constructing?
Yeah, so we, from a municipal standpoint, we have various codes, right? The building code is one section, the property maintenance code is in a different section, such as public works is a different section. Zoning is one chapter of the overall village code. So nuisance is covered in multiple chapters, so it's very, it's all-inclusive. It's not necessarily one specific section that we could address, right? You have to look at the overall village code. So there might be, beyond just the zoning ordinance, there might be under the building permit chapter, stipulations as to construction and
Are
allowing.
you
the temporary
familiar
structure.
with such a section? I just want to know.
Yeah,
what the
I
section-
believe that the village code does cover that, and a separate section other than the zoning ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Just slow.
Thank you. Couldn't the verbiage just be as simplistic as a baseline one storage container is allowed, and then a caveat in there where, upon discussion or review, multiples may be
Permitted.
may be allowed on a case by case. I mean, one sentence would take care of all that confusion.
That's a variance. That's what you have to go in for variance, which has been said is too cumbersome.
No, but I'm saying, just in this verbiage here, no more than one, there's your baseline, unless, have some leeway in there, in the verbiage.
Well, who would have that say-so? That's what you'd have to say in the verbiage.
Well, I mean, upon review of the village manager or
Yeah,
community
you can.
development or the village president, someone to make a call and say, hey, it's a 6-month project, we need 10 containers. Is this doable? Yes, no.
Yeah.
Not a big, long, drawn-out project.
Trustee Kozar.
Well, another example, if you got a permit and you can have unlimited shipping containers, and that's already settled in our code already, according to Consuelo, then, again, if we use the Walmart example, how do we keep them from being in violation down Christmas time? They have multiple shipping containers because they have Christmas product or merchandise in there. They have more than one, it's temporary. We want to allow them to do that, and we don't want to open them up that somebody's gonna complain or cite them for having merchandise in multiple shipping containers.
I don't know, does Walmart hit more at Christmas time?
They have it in the past, Your Honor.
They get a permit for that, or really?
And also during
But
the
usually just
summer.
during Christmas time, they store, or on TV, but I'm sure they store all kinds of different stuff out there. When it sells, then they pull them off their property.
Okay. Trustee Murphy.
Yes, I'd like to get clarification on the objectives of a board meeting. My training suggests that these board meetings are for governance and voting purposes, not for working sessions. I would propose that a motion be made that these particular 12 items get deferred back to planning and zoning for exactly the type of discussion that we're having right now, and then be brought back to the board with planning and zoning's recommendations. I personally don't think it's appropriate to be using the board's time, our staff's time, and our residents' time to be discussing these 12 items to this level of detail. I think we would be much more effective to get planning and zoning input and then make an efficient and effective vote from there. Thank you.
You making that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Mr. President, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on the
Okay.
table with regard to the ordinance.
Okay.
So, do you want to take a vote on that and then a vote on the motion that was just made?
Yes.
Well,
Can I ask a question? Will there be a date certain for this meeting?
this will go to the next planning and zoning November, it was brought up, it was November 11th.
But for our
Make the
open table
notification.
discussion,
It'll come.
Yeah. we will.
it'll come back
Yes.
at a date certain or at,
Well, after it goes through there, then it comes back and there will be no notice required though, right?
22nd of
It'll just come back
November.
to us.
Yeah.
Well,
Once P and Z goes through it and makes their suggestions,
right, that's
it just
be
comes to us.
notice put in the newspaper for P and Z, and then
Yeah.
P and Z has the public hearing, and then
Yeah.
after that, if everything's resolved
Yeah,
during that one meeting,
right.
then if there's a vote, then it comes back to the
Yeah.
village board the next
Next
meeting.
so it
to
could
be
be as
done.
close, as soon as the November, was it 22nd?
22nd, are we moving that meeting up? The
I don't
15th?
believe so.
Okay, so yeah, it would be the 22nd.
If it's smooth sailing through P and Z.
Right, yeah. But there is the motion about the ordinance, which we were discussing, but I agree with trustee Murphy. I mean, we don't need to discuss each one individual. If there's items on here that we'd like to bring up that are important, that are not in these 12 items, I think we send these to P and Z. But if there's any other items in this ordinance that you'd like to discuss, I would think that now would be the time.
Can I just, it's not really a question or anything, it's just an observation. We've kind of done this with the initial, with the red line and the strikes and all that, and we came back with our thoughts on changes. Now we're coming back again. At what point do we say, that's it?
Well, once this,
I'm just
oh yeah, well, once,
throwing it out there, I mean, it seems
well,
like
I think
it's
these are the
repetitive.
major changes of this section, these 12 items. And once that comes back to us, then I would think
I
that
mean,
that
is
would be
there-
it. then that's it.
Is there an end to this,
Madness?
Trustee Kumar?
Well, they're going to be sent back to P and Z. Is there a possibility of getting input from the board towards what's sent back to P and Z before they're sent on the 12 changes?
When it comes back to us, you mean, or?
No, the 12 changes, maybe we have different input on it as board members. How do we send back those changes to P and Z?
Can board member, can they bring it at P and Z?
More than welcome to attend the P&Z.
I mean, if you have an
Yeah,
amendment, you might as well.
Yeah, you
send
can
it
attend the meeting and give your
to
comments on
opinion.
it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. What can
Are we
I,
taking a vote?
yes, please.
On the amendment?
This is on
The
the
ordinance?
second one, the second
Yes.
ordinance.
Okay, second ordinance, vote now. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
8B.
Trustee Patrick?
Just to clarify, this is 8B.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, aye, okay. Trustee Corkery?
I'm gonna abstain.
You cannot.
I cannot.
Nope.
Can I be present?
Yes, you
Okay.
may.
It'll go with the majority. Okay. Okay. Trustee Salella?
yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery? I mean, sorry, Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
No.
President Kazan?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
No.
now, if you'd like to.
I'd
make-
like to make a motion.
I've got it, first and second.
You got it right?
Okay, all
Okay,
right.
cool.
Okay, and we had a second, trustee
Yes,
Patrick?
second, Trustee
Okay.
Patrick.
No,
Okay,
discussion.
motion?
Discussion, trustee Kozar.
And, okay, so now the motion on the table is that it goes back to P and Z and these 12 items.
These
get
12 items, yeah.
Discussed, and any amendments that perhaps Deepa had alluded to that perhaps she would want to make, or any other board member would want to make.
Correct.
And any of our board members are welcome to comment and join that discussion at P and Z. Or are they going to be limited to the 3 minutes at the opening comments?
I don't know what
yeah.
the rules, I don't know what the rules procedure are at P and Z.
It would probably, well, we
Well,
have,
they're an advisory commission. I mean, we could make that here and invite the trustees to enter into that discussion.
Not a working session.
yeah,
It is open.
You mean to have the public hearing here? Is that what you're saying? You can't do that?
Well, the public meeting will be in this room.
Correct.
I mean, that's where P and Z meets. But to allow the trustees to have dialogue in the P and Z meeting with P and Z.
Well, they're usually,
Yeah, up
they're,
till October
they are
5th,
there to
that's
make
5 weeks.
comments. And to the extent there's dialogue, it's just like here before the board, it's really up to the chair who is chairing the meeting in terms of how much dialogue. We can't control their procedure.
But it's not up to our president to direct the commission to allow
No,
the trustees'
every-
participation?
Every commission has their own procedures, and the village president can't say, P and Z, you have to have unlimited time comment, or whatever commission are.
Where does one find that procedure?
The
Is it
procedure
written
is
anywhere?
usually determined by the chair. I don't know if they have written procedures per commission.
So we give direction right now, specific direction.
yeah. Would you like to comment on that? Things we have the chair here.
Yes, typically, we try to foster dialogue as best we can. We do limit comments generally to 3 minutes, but when there are questions and comments that are relevant or that come up in discussion, we do allow additional discussion. The other option could potentially be a workshop, which we've done for some things. I don't know if that makes sense here or not, because we wouldn't typically vote during a workshop. That would be a discussion that would push things farther down the timeline. So,
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Okay. Trustee Kumar.
I wanted to know, would it, this is a question for Kathy, because let's say all 5 of us end up at this meeting, because this is crucial to all of us. We can't all speak there, because it would be against open acts, I would assume. No or yes?
You may attend, you may only discuss, you may not discuss
With
amongst,
each other?
amongst yourselves. You are attending a meeting that's been properly noticed under the Open Meetings Act. You are invited to come and make your comment. That's where it gets difficult, because you are not then allowed to discuss it with each other as a violation of an Open Meetings Act.
Okay, so you can make your-
But now, there are ways to get around that. If you really want to have an open discussion, we can also notice it up as a meeting of the village board, joint meeting of the village board. There are various ways to allow more discussion, as a special meeting of the board or a joint meeting. The problem with that, as we're properly told, is we're trying to cut the time on this, and we don't want to take away the Plans Commission right to vote on their recommendations at that time. If that doesn't matter to you, then there's many different arrangements that we can do to abide by the Open Meetings Act and give you an opportunity.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes, I guess I'm a little befuddled by all of the conversation about the trustees providing input. We've had 5 weeks. Trustee Kozar's been asking us all to reach out to him with our input. And so if there was any, or if you wanted to add any, there's certainly been a welcoming opportunity to do that. And I'm sure certainly between now and the time it would come to a vote, you are more than welcome to provide any input you would like.
Trustee Corkery.
If I may, I spoke to Trustee Kozar about a lot of these changes, and I think a lot of them are good things and important. I have no opposition to putting them before planning and zoning, but I don't see why we shouldn't talk about them either. I mean, we're the elected representatives of the people of this village. It's our job to talk about this stuff. Is it important or isn't it?
The normal procedure would be, we get input from the Plan Commission and a recommendation, and then it comes up to the board to discuss them.
Trustee Kumar.
I think in the interest of time, and that's why we're willing, some of us, to go to the planning and zoning meeting. And we want to do that in the proper manner, so it is vetted out all at once, rather than bring it back to the meeting like it's been going back and forth. Their time is valuable, our time is valuable, and in the interest of time, if there is a procedure that makes it legal for us to be there and have an open discussion, let us set up the meeting in that way for at least this omnibus set of code. That's my opinion.
Perfect. We've got a motion on the table.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Vote on the
Trustee,
motion.
vote on the motion, please.
Okay. Okay, trustee Salella,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time?
this is the motion to move the 12 items to P and Z
And then it'll come right back to us.
after the vote process.
Yes,
Yes.
I vote yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes,
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
president Kazal.
Yes. Okay. We will move on to,
They want to do a joint meeting, we could
okay, resolution number 9A, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, Dupage County, Illinois, approving a cable television franchise agreement by and between the Village of Villa Park and Comcast of Illinois 2, Inc. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Following federal regulations, Comcast notified the village that the existing franchise agreement is set to expire November 21 and requested to enter into discussions for a successor agreement. For the most part, the agreement verbiage is the same, except in late August and early September of 2019, the FCC determined that any free basic cable services provided to a municipality must be counted as an in-kind payment of the owed franchise fee payment. Currently, Comcast provides these free services of one cable box in Village Hall, Public Works, and the Police Department. Under these new changes, the cost of the 3 boxes must be deducted from the franchise fees owed to the village. There are no other changes of substance to the model agreement. This model agreement or some Similar form is used in Woodridge, Carroll Stream, Downers Grove, Elmhurst, Westmont, West Chicago, and DuPage County. Term of the agreement is 10 years from the effective date, with the franchise fee remaining at 5% of annual gross revenues from the operation of the cable system to provide cable service. Comcast franchise fees generate approximately $253,000 annually for the village. It is recommended the village board approve the resolution. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for this? Trustee Corkery. We have a second? Trustee Kumar? Okay, any questions or comments? Trustee Corkery.
So we're talking about cable boxes like the one you would have in your house here to get cable?
Basic services, Your Honor.
Yeah. Yeah, basic. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Karnicki, please.
Okay, trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Silella,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
President Kazal.
Yes. Okay, move on to item 9B, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing the village manager to execute an agreement with the Illinois Emergency Management Agency for funding the Jackson Pond Improvement Project from the Fema 2019 Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant Program. Manager Keener.
Thank you, Your Honor. Staff wishes to accept the awarded FEMA 2019 Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant for grant funding for the construction of the Jackson Pond Improvement Project. The project consists of the expansion of the Jackson Pond Stormwater Detention Basin. The project also includes the installation of storm sewers, which would be tributary to the expanded detention basin. The estimated cost, total cost of construction for the project is $5,608,000. The village was awarded grant funding in the maximum amount of $4 million, or approximately 71% of the estimated cost of construction. Funding for the village's share of project costs would be provided by the Storm Water Fund. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. We have a motion. Trustee Solella? We have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Patrick. Any questions or comments? Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I wanted to, if this is approved and passes, what's the time frame on the completion of the project?
Second or?
Whichever you want, Your Honor.
Whoever you want.
Your Honor, and board and folks in the audience at home, we've talked about this many times, so I think the FEMA still has to approve the plans, but our hope as staff is that we get going on this important project in spring of '22.
Trustee Solella.
So my understanding is the detention basin will be increased to accommodate Jackson Pond's increased size and volume. Would that also enable the early childhood development construction to enhance the drainage into that basin also?
Thank you, Your Honor. To my knowledge, they've already gone into the Jackson Pond and excavated to allow Jackson Pond the ability to accept the storm water from that facility. And that was approved by the board some time ago.
Right. I remember that. My question is, will that extra flow into the approved basin now be shifted to the detention basin at the park?
Yes,
Are we moving it down?
yes, we're moving it further, yes.
And we have no concerns about that for the neighborhood?
No, in fact, we want to make sure that as their stormwater goes into the pond, and then when we open up the 72-inch main on South Michigan, that the pond can accept that water as well, and we'll need a cushion. And if I'm not mistaken, it's at least 12 inches, give or take. And so, yes, it's been designed that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Clerk Karnicki, roll please.
Okay, trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Silella,
Yes.
President Kazal.
Yes. Okay, item 9C, resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving an amendment to the engineering services agreement with Strand Associates, Inc. of Joliet, Illinois for Phase 3 construction engineering of the Michigan Avenue Improvement Project, central to kennel work in an amount not to exceed $35,000. Manager Keenan.
Thank you, Your Honor. The village approved an engineering service agreement with Strand Associates, Inc. for Phase 3 construction engineering of the Michigan Avenue Improvement Project central to Kenilworth on April 20th, 2020. During the construction of the project, several delays were experienced with gas service relocations and contractor inefficiencies. These delays caused Strand Associates to incur additional staff time to fulfill the terms of the agreement. Since the delays were outside Strand's control, they are requesting additional compensation in the amount of $35,000 for their services. After reviewing the proposal, staff feels the request is reasonable and recommends the approval of the amendment to the engineering services agreement. Funding for the construction engineering work is budgeted in the Street Improvement Fund referendum, Water Supply Fund, Wastewater Fund capital, and Wastewater Fund sewer separation. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Murphy, do we have a second? Anyone want to second that?
Mr. President, I'll make that second.
Trustee Patrick. Any discussion, questions? Trustee Corkery.
When we say contractor inefficiencies, what contractors are we talking about?
Yes, there were contractor inefficiencies. It was not Strand, it was the actual contractor in the field doing the road work. And NICOR caused several delays as well. Some of the gas service lines to the homes were not at the level that previously was thought, and they had to be lowered. So when NICOR came out to lower them, some were lowered correctly, some were not. And then the actual contractor on site was not efficient. They were the first time as a contractor, and the village probably will not use that firm in the future. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Are we able to get anything back from NICOR on this?
Your Honor, more than likely, we're going to go after the contractor, and the contractor will go after NICOR, so it's going to be a phased approach.
Okay,
Thank you, Your Honor.
Trustee Corkery.
So this is a subcontractor for Strand that was the new party that was inefficient, or?
No.
Oh,
Go
it was
ahead.
subcontractor
Okay.
for NICOR?
No, the contractor that had the issues with the sewer, or I'm sorry, with the NICOR gas lines was the contractor that did the road work. And so Strand is the Phase 3 oversight engineering firm. In other words, the engineering firm that's on site to oversee the construction, measuring the quantities, taking photos of that nature. It is not a subcontractor of Strand. Thank you, Your Honor.
We've been working with Strand for a long time here in the village of Villa Park.
We've worked with Strand in the past, Your Honor.
And we will be pursuing some kind of recompense for this money that we're spending extra on this project.
Yes. Okay. Trustee Kuma.
Is this common practice? Adjusting off a bill due to some error that is not on the part of the village?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, it does happen ever so often. And then in each contract, there's also a clawback clause where the contractor is actually limited to a certain number of days to get the project done. And if the project's not done in those certain days, if there's not valid reasons, then there's costs charged per day. So it kind of can work both ways. Thank you, Your
So
Honor.
is that part of the contract that you had with Strand already? The cost charged per day, is that where the 35,000 is coming from?
Yes, what occurred is the Strand Associates, due to the delays and NICOR lines being at the certain elevation, caused excess man hours for the Phase 3 oversight. So Strand had to be on site and bring in more folks to watch and document all the different NICOR gas mains being lowered. Several were hit. NICOR came on site, stopped construction until things were resolved. Thank you, Your Honor.
This hasn't happened in a while. I don't remember this having a chargeback like this for a long time. Okay, any other questions? Clerk Kornecki, please.
Okay, Trustee Kumar,
Yes.
Trustee Salella?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
No.
President Kazone?
Yes. Okay, we will move on to public comments and non-agenda items. Clerk Konecki, we have anyone signed up?
I have no one.
Okay, we have anyone for any comments? Okay, we will move to the village clerk's report.
Okay, just have one, to let our senior community know that the SALT meeting will be this Wednesday, the 13th, at the Community Recreation Building. This is the seniors and law enforcement together. That's written down as SALT. And the actual program starts at 11 a.m., and there will be a lunch provided by the Senior Concerns Commission. So all seniors are welcome.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will, village trustees report. We'll start on my left tonight. Trustee Kumar.
Nothing today.
Okay, Trustee Corkery?
Go ahead and give me just a sec. You know, it's been a long night. I'll get it next week. 2 weeks from now.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes, thank you. Two things. There's a Parks and Rec Commission meeting tomorrow at 7 o'clock at Iowa Center. Everyone is welcome. And Parks and Rec is sponsoring their Halloween happenings this Friday the 15th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So check it out, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody getting ready to put on their trick-or-treat outfits and get some good use out of them over the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. All right, Trustee Kozar.
Lots of talk about procedure tonight. What is the procedure to add something to the agenda? If one wanted to add something to the agenda.
Item number 4 is amendments to the agenda.
So at that time, just one trustee can say, I would like to add
Okay,
X,
hang
Y,
on.
Z to the agenda?
Hang on.
Anything to be discussed by, other than a general discussion, anything to be voted on the board has to be on the agenda no less than 48 hours prior to the meeting. So that practice has been, if there's a trustee that wants an item on the agenda, that would be discussed with the manager and then presented to the mayor. The village president controls the agenda.
And I've heard that and read, but I just wanted clarification, that a number of trustees, a set number of trustees can request.
The law is that 3 trustees may call a special meeting. So by custom and use, it has become practice, custom and practice, that if 3 trustees could call a special meeting, 3 trustees together should be able to request and demand something be added to the agenda. There is no law on that, but the logical conclusion, if 3 trustees can call a meeting, they should have the power to put an item on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Nothing further.
Okay. Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I just would like to remind everybody that registration started today for the Villa Park Youth Baseball League, grades 1 through 4, also 5 through 8. If you are interested in your kids joining the Youth Basketball League, practices for grades 1 through 4 are once per week, and grades 5 through 8 are 2 days per week, with games to be held starting November 13th and in January for the 5th to 8th graders. If you want more information about that, you could email Sue Earl at SBARL@invillapark.com. Also, coming up, we have Halloween happenings this year. It's Friday, October 15th from 6 to 8 p.m. It's a free outdoor event. Wear your costume and bring your empty treat bag. It's for all ages. They will also have Crosstown Exotics Reptile Show. These guys I know personally. They are awesome. They have some really cool reptiles that they are going to be bringing to the show. So I definitely recommend that. If you would like more information about that, you could visit the Iowa Community Center as well. And again, thank you to all of our first responders out there keeping us safe at home. Thank you.
Trustee Salva.
Just like to mention to Chief Reeves, our police department, did a great job on our latest might call extreme crime with the carjacking. I'm sure most people know the story if they watch the news. Good job, and I'm impressed on the quick resolution to that. That was outstanding. So thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to President's Report. Got a few things tonight. There's been a couple questions about the free leaf pickup. That will start on October 18th, which will be a week from today, and will run until December 3rd, I believe. It's the 2nd, but 3rd is a Friday. So starting next Monday, and it'll run until Friday, December 3rd. Electronic recycling is this Saturday, the 16th at Public Works out here, right next to City Hall. It goes from 9 to 12. You have to be a resident to use it. This past Friday, Rotary and Kiwanis had their night golf at Sugar Creek, and it was a lot of fun. They had a pretty decent turnout, probably about 65 golfers or so. And hopefully they did very well for the kids of the community. It was a good night. Food was good, and it was a lot of fun. Pumpkin Smash, the Environmental Concerns Commission is still going to have that this year. Saturday, November 6th from 8 to 12. The dumpster will be out back here by Village Hall. So bring your pumpkins if you want to environmentally safely get rid of them. Villa Avenue Business District is having their trick or treat Saturday the 30th from 1 to 3 o'clock, and then from 3 to 4 there will be a costume contest at Cortese Park. So that's always a lot of fun. They didn't do it last year because of COVID, but that's a lot of fun. And Joyful Traditions will be back December 4th on the Prairie Path from 5 to 8 o'clock. So we're getting out of COVID and hopefully getting a little bit back to normal. And the village manager's report.
Your Honor, I've spoken enough tonight.
Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for October 25th, and we have a motion for adjournment.
Mr. President, I'd like to make that motion.
Trustee Patrick, second. Trustee Slell, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll see everybody back on the 25th.